Okay, hello everyone. My name is William Vasilev, and that's the official community meeting for Velero. Today is October 18th, and that's the US/Europe friendly time zone meeting. We were just discussing the change of the that same meeting, the time frame. So I'm gonna share this one. Please add yourself to the list. I'm gonna send that to the chat. So the update for me is like tomorrow I'm gonna send the new invite, and we were just discussing with Scott that there will be two meetings. One will be called Beijing friendly time zone, and it will be bind to the Beijing time zone. So there will be no change due to change in the daytime savings, and the other one will be tied to the East Coast, right? Right, Scott? It's East Coast.
Yes, yeah, it should be 10 a.m. US East Coast
Yep.
time.
Yep.
So it's 2 hours earlier than we're meeting today.
Yes, correct. Yeah, and they will start the next one, which will be the Beijing friendly one. Will be the next one, and in 2 weeks' time will be the US East Coast and European one friendly, with the new time frame.
Right.
Yep. So
yeah, and then the other change is, instead of having a separate time for first Tuesday, second Wednesday, whatever, we're just going to be alternating weeks. So
yeah,
there's no longer going to be the notion of first Tuesday of the month is a certain time. It's just every 2 weeks, starting next Wednesday is Beijing time zone meeting, and every 2 weeks, basically from today, is US time zone meeting.
Yep, correct. And to be, because I struggle with which one is which one, I'm gonna name them like Beijing friendly and US European friendly. So
that works.
I mean, it's a bit more human readable than yep. So with that, two things. The Oktoberfest, I sent that message to the Velero dev channel. Nobody responded to me, so I thought that's like a silent agreement. What I'm aiming with the Oktoberfest thing is to get more visibility on the project. It's not that I'm expecting like super duper quality PRs from random community members, but it's to be like to get some awareness about the project and that we're active. So if something comes in and to be marked as the Oktoberfest PR, I'll make sure to inform you and to get the load as much as possible from you, and to just to get the technical stuff out. End of the month, I'll remove that flag from the repository, and we're good. So with that, Scott, you have added some stuff.
So the first ones here are a repeat from last week, just because those are still PRs out there needing a review. And that's the item action plugin design. And there's been some review, there've been some comments. We just needed to sort of get a finalized, and I know I talked through this a bit 2 weeks ago, so we probably don't need to go through it in detail again. I'm just kind of a reminder that, and this is more a reminder for the other maintainers, because we really just need the consensus based on because there were some comments that were, going back and forth. This is not going to be in the 110 scope, but I want it approved soon. So my hope is that when we branch for 110 with the RC1, RC0, the first release candidate, that's the point when I want to be able to start working on this, so we can kind of front load the development cycle for 111 to get this in there early, because that'll allow us to do kind of the data mover work on top of that. And the other PRs listed after that are kind of follow on, basically dependent on that. So the async action plugin is the overall design for the feature that includes references to the API changes needed for plugins, and these are more isolated, specific plugin API design changes, backup item action, restore item action, and volume snapshotter that are based on the ideas from that PR. There's one other addition in the restore item action. It also includes another approved, previously approved design that's referenced in that design. Basically, we had another feature that was approved some time ago, but it was on hold until we had plugin version. So the restore item action design includes both of those. So those are draft PRs now, because until the item action plugin design is approved. The API designs can't be approved because they're dependent on each other. But they're should be basically ready to go unless there are changes in that first PR. And that's all from previous meetings. The new one this week is the draft implementation of the backup item action V2. This is an actual implementation PR that's implementing those new API changes that were proposed. Again, it's a draft because the design isn't approved yet, so this can't be merged yet. But this is kind of, I just wanted to get that out there so people can start to see, based on that design, here's what we're talking about changing, and here's what it would look like. And there's some build changes here in the Docker file to also handle the fact that we now have the protobuf code and plugin specific directories. So there's a little bit of infrastructure change around that as well. But basically, this is implementing the design ideas from that design PR, which adds a couple of new functions to the API. And again, based on the design of the plugin versioning in general, we have a notion of an adapter here, so that so we move, for example, backup processing to use the V2 plugin. So when the backup controller says, give me the plugins, it gets V2 plugins. But for those, we don't want to break legacy plugins. So we have, this implementation includes an adapter. So basically what happens is that if a plugin registers a V1 plugin, which is basically any existing plugin image will still work, or even a new plugin image that still wants to use the old API, the adapter will provide a default implementation for those two new functions. Either a no-op as appropriate, or maybe returns an error saying, hey, this isn't supported. But in any case, the adapter will return to Velero a plugin that meets the new API design, even though the plugin as written is for the old API. And this is to preserve backwards compatibility with existing plugins. So we expect that all of the new plugin, V2, V3, whatever that we build should include this adapter. The only exception being if we eventually have to create a plugin with a breaking change to say, hey, we need this new function in a plugin, and it doesn't make sense with this new version of Velero to use old plugins anymore because there's no default implementation. That won't provide an adapter, and old plugins will break, and we'll have to document that and inform people and all that. We're not doing any of that now. None of the changes we're proposing should break old plugins at this point. But the plugin versioning design kind of included that as an option to say, if a new version of Velero, we come out and we say we need this new thing in plugins, and it no longer makes sense to have an old plugin without this thing, then that would be a breaking plugin change that would not create an adapter, and we'd have to announce ahead of time, old plugins are going to break with this release. But none of the V2 designs that we're talking about here do that. So we shouldn't be breaking any existing plugins with any of these proposed designs at this point.
Right, and from my information, where I can find the designs for this stuff, so I can get
if you go back to my PRs, so I had links. Yeah, so the first design, that's kind of the feature level design, talking about what changes we need that includes plugin API changes. These are the detailed plugin API design changes where I'm actually identifying what are the new functions we're adding to the interface, what are we changing in terms of inputs and outputs. Got it. So the order here is that first async plugin needs to be approved first, because that's the feature level design. Once that's approved, these plugin version design changes can be reviewed and approved, because those basically are the plugin API specific details around to implement what we proposed above. And then once those are approved, then the implementations themselves can be put in place.
Mm-hmm.
And so those design docs can be approved at any point. Those don't really they're not really part of a release in that sense. The feature PR we were just looking at some of the code of just now, that's a feature that's not being delivered in 1.10. So that's a PR that's not going to be ready to merge until at the earliest we make the release 1.10 branch, because then it would go against main, because none of that code is slated for 1.10. So we're not going to merge it on main until after we've created the 1.10 release, the release 1.10 branch.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Anyone wants to share status updates on any topic? No. Then I have my next one. KubeCon Europe 2023. Call for papers is open until November 18th. So anyone planning to apply for CFPs there, or shall we try again to submit the panel discussion about the future backup? What do you think? I'm more than happy to apply again with you, Scott, if you want. Especially if we have the new data mover stuff in place.
Yeah. That might be worth doing as well.
We have plenty of time. We have a month, so yeah, we can figure out. I'm just like a heads up for everyone to think about it. But I think we should definitely apply again with the panel discussion, because it's I think it's super relevant for the whole thing. And also we can apply with few others if someone wants to talk about it. I'm super happy to help anyone with this one, with the logistics or presentation or whatever. And of course, joining you on stage if you want me. So keep in mind, think about it. We can discuss it again. And Pradeep, you have the Velero 111 planning?
Yeah, so there was some discussion on Slack, Velero Dev, like how do we go about the kind of release discussions, the scope and all? How do we kind of make it more kind of generic? And I saw that you had a page for 1.10, Lynn, like to collect requirements. I am hoping that we can start for similar wiki page, the discussion page for 1.11.
Sure
and
thing.
give it a 2 weeks time, people to kind of post the requests. And also the Daniel has created a label for 1.11. So internally, I'm going through issues and trying to tag it to 1.1. And then we can kind of see in the next 2 to 3 weeks if we can collect at least where is a sense of community to go through in 1.1 list. And second topic in 1.1, like I want to understand the data mover. So where does the data mover timeline fits in? Based on that, we can decide the scope of 1.1 with data mover, without data mover, depending on timeline. So my vision is like we should do 3 releases in a year, not kind of every alternate month, but at least 3 to 4 months a release with kind of a meaningful chunk. And next meaningful chunk is data mover. From my perspective, would be very good enhancement. But then if 1.1 time frame it doesn't fit in, then we can look at some alternative options. So it's a collection of requirement, and then once the requirements are there, how do we finalize the scope of 1.1 timeline?
Pradeep, so we will still have bug fix releases, or
Yeah.
original?
Yes. So like minor releases, like when we do 1.11, before that we may have 1.10.1 or something like patches and fixes. Those like we are doing for 1.9.3 and also. So that's, I'm more talking the major releases happening kind of 3 to 4 months of cadence, and then in middle the patches, releases, bug fixes and all can keep going on.
Having a cadence would be super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, I know in the past, especially, we've kind of releases have kind of, there's been a little more than the, more than the 3-4 months between releases. And I know in particular on the Red Hat side with OADP, our concern about 1.11 at this point is that like this async plugin design that we're talking about here was something that was originally in scope for 1.10 that we were hoping to get in there. Various reasons it slipped. Design didn't get approved in time. Some of the prerequisites weren't done. That's fine. But because it's something that we were hoping to have in 1.10, ideal for us would actually be a slightly shorter release for 111 to make sure we get these things in, at a minimum, even if it meant data mover was in 112, because we can build on this to get some things in place, and then build on that in a later release with data mover, and so that would allow us to kind of be more incremental in our approach. Whereas if we're waiting, a long time to get this stuff in plus data mover, that's going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of work into our schedule, just because we're trying to plan our next release with 111, and hopefully get that 111, out there as soon as it would make sense, with these at a minimum, these things that we're talking about designing right now.
Yeah, and I agree, Scott. I'm all flexible. We just want to see that in 1.1.11 what all we can do that. So that's where the discussion will. Let's vote on those few things. And then we also need to know data mover timeline. So I don't know exactly where is the data mover timeline. If it's kind of 1 month plus minus case, then we can decide either way. But if it kind of data mover is going 2-3 months away from the next kind of major release timeline,
right,
then probably we can think about it kind of split into parts. So
Yeah.
let's have a scope defined slowly, and
that
then
makes sense.
we'll get a kind of idea of where what thing falls, and then so if November is a release, latest we should release something in February, March, like 4 months. If we release something in November, then something in February, March timeframe, I'm thinking we should release every 3 to 4 months one major release, and then in minor patches and all. Too many major also would be kind of sometime very tough for the commercial product to kind of adopt and then move, because as soon as something major comes, a lot of kind of people who are using Velero, the things to move to a major version, and then every alternate months, if they find a major version, it's tough for them to kind of certify and then use the solution. So giving a kind of cadence of 3 to 4 month cycle makes sense in my, so that it kind of optimizes the adoption as well as our value proposition.
So Pradeep, this is Wes Hayton. Just you're estimating a possible 111 in the first quarter next year, like March before KubeCon, something like that.
Yeah, something like that would be more of a, and then before KubeCon, if we have a release with the kind of significant things in that, would be great. And that's where the data mover conversation comes. If it's there, then it's great. If it's kind of slipping, we will kind of see what we can do. Either we find some more resources to fit in, or either we say it's beta, data mover is a beta kind of, it's still not there, but can we get into the beta? So something exciting in the KubeCon to talk about it would be a great thing.
And again, back on the data mover, I just wanted to again point out, kind of at least from our needs on the Red Hat side, the item action plugin changes, although those are a major prerequisite for data mover itself, but they're also something that we have our own internal data mover that we eventually want to move to the upstream data mover is using. So I'm just saying that's a point even less than the full data mover that's still useful for us if there's issues with data mover fitting in and all that. Obviously, if we can fit in that same 3 to 4 month time frame to get all of data mover done as well, that's even better. But I just wanted to point out that first step towards that is a useful point to release on, even if we don't have the full data mover. But obviously, the more the better, if it tends to that cadence that we're talking about. What I wouldn't want to see is delaying that release more than the 3 to 4 months, to get data mover in if it wasn't going to fit. At that point, we should just say, here's 111, here's the scope, and then 112 will include data mover.
No, I agree. We should not go beyond March for the next release of kind of Velero. It's my high level sense, unless it's kind of just 1 month plus minus. Other than that, in principle, every 4 months there should be kind of a significant release. We are a kind of a good community, a lot of kind of contributions, so we should start kind of thinking of that cadence. I don't want to kind of break a cadence just to fit in things. Then we'll change the scope or reduce the scope depending, rather than changing the cadence itself. There can be exception where 2 weeks plus minus delay to include significant capability, but not beyond that kind of thing. Not 3-4 months delay for sure.
And forgive my ignorance, would Copia be fully supported in 111 at March? Is that
It's in 110, right? Copia
Yeah.
already. It's
Yeah.
yeah. So
Um,
so it should be done in end of November. That's my understanding. The copia thing.
okay. Thank you.
So-
And Pradeep, so are you in, so when, so qualifying new Kubernetes releases, right? So there also we get 3 releases. So like, I'm assuming we can qualify these in bug fixed or minor releases, right? Doesn't need to be a.
Yeah, I think the version qualification, if until it doesn't need a major change, we can qualify into the minor releases because we can't sync exactly with the Kubernetes releases, our releases. So if something comes, it's all backward compatible. You qualify, you have to fix minor things, do that. But if there is a significant change or you want to use kind of some major functionality of Kubernetes where there is a more change, then we decide case to case basis, we can take it up.
I mean, we generally try to avoid, for example, things that involve CRD changes and those, like
Yeah.
Velero 1.10.1, for example, we wouldn't want to add something that modifies the CRDs generally, if we can avoid that. But mostly they're bug fixes and historically, and I suppose a small feature that didn't change CRDs could possibly also be included there. But for the most part, those are bug fix releases.
Yeah, just run kind of a pipeline test or something. If all passes without like everything is compatible, works. If there are changes which makes significant change, we'll take the backward compatibility for this minor version releases, then we should not do that. Then major version is the play. So again, that's what I said. Case to case basis, we can kind of see it where it fits in. So I see that action item, like we'll create that early in the page for discussion, and then we'll try to kind of start doing things. What Daniel is doing, he's creating a wiki page for roadmap for 1.1, the similar to 1.10, as well as he has created the tag label already for tagging it. And then on the page, we can notify community to kind of start putting their GitHub issues, which they want in 1.1. And I would prefer like people who put their issues also knows that kind of either someone from community picks up, or like if you can start identifying owner who would kind of start wanting to contribute to that, so that it will make easy decision when we try to scope it, whether we can do that. Item is good, but there should be some takers of those items also, so which we'll discuss on the same thread and then see how we can move.
You're fading out a little bit, so just to repeat, you want to make sure that our message towards the community is like, if you have something in mind about new features, to be like the same person to be like engaging with the actual development of this feature. Is that what you're saying, or I didn't get it?
Or once it is, they can post it, but if they are not able to do, someone if doesn't pick, then that goes away from the plate. So if you're proposing something, either you become a contributor or someone should pick it up, like good idea. If nobody is kind of picking up, then we're not kind of forcing someone to just take it up because you proposed.
Yeah, always the message should be like, yeah, we're collecting ideas and requirements, but we are also collecting people willing to actually contribute to that, because otherwise it's like halfway there. It's not the complete thing.
Yeah,
because it can be priority for them, but definitely not priority for the rest of the team. So yeah. Yep. Yeah, sure. I'll create that right after our call. I have a topic about the tech lead / architect role. As we discussed it, I think last time, Dave want to step out from that role. I didn't manage to find anything concrete on this one, how we should elect the next one. So I think we should either get a governance updated with that election thing, or we just can have like a issue voting about the actual how to say it, role. I know Daniel is normally taking the technical lead, so I suppose he wants to be the architect, overall architect. Is there any discussion going on with about this topic on the other community meeting, which is the
I-
Beijing time zone?
I have not seen that come up in the meeting. I was just going to mention one thing in terms of governance. I would say if it's not in the governance doc, I think the first thing we need to do is update the governance doc to handle this, because I don't think we can say, well, we're going to vote on it, because the governance doc doesn't allow us to vote on it. You know, the whole
Sure.
point here of being an open community is that the governance doc kind of tells us how we do these things. And for example, the governance doc talks about how you add maintainers, and we followed that. And that works. It's worked pretty well for us. I think the governance doc needs to address tech lead and architect as well. And the other thing I was going to say about that is that I know in the past, those are two different roles, and we always had two different maintainers, that would take that role. For example, most recently, Dave was the architect. And this is, rewind back when Dave was still at VMware and he was active. Dave was the architect, and Nolan, I believe, was the tech lead. And before that, they had swapped, and and then now I guess Daniel is tech lead. But anyway,
Sure.
because those are different roles with kind of different focuses, it probably makes, I don't know if the governance doc ought to specifically say that, the preference is that those are different people, for the roles. But I just know that in the past, that's how it has been done.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
And I think the governance doc probably should also address the question of, because again, in the past, these roles have always been VMware employees, but also in the past, the maintainers with, usually one or two exceptions were also all VMware employees. I think the governance doc update should be explicit about this, saying, for example, there's not a requirement or there is a requirement, and then we can discuss which way it should be. But I'm just saying, I think the governance doc should make that clear. If full maintainers don't necessarily need to be VMware employees, again, speaking as a non-VMware employee, it might make sense that the same would be true for tech leads and architects. But either way, I think that needs to go through that process to get the governance doc updated. I don't remember if the governance doc itself talks about how you update the governance doc.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'll address that to our OSPO office, and then I'll come back. Okay.
So I think we need to do that task first. Figure out the process for getting a new tech lead, get that into the governance doc and approved by the maintainers. And once we've done that, then we can go into the process of figuring out, who should fill that role.
Correct. Okay, that's on my plate. I'll try to provide update on this one until next week. Okay. Another one. Do we need like a time slot within the maintenance team to get together and to do like a PR triaging, like a open PR triaging, and to get over the new PRs and discuss them? Do you think that there is a need for this one? What I'm aiming with this one, I'm aiming to make the time to respond, to time to review, and time to engage on PRs much lower, so we can practically nurture the new contributors or anyone who is contributing and spending their time with our project to get more relevant feedback on time.
I like the idea of experimenting with things to improve those two outcomes of the time to review and triage and get feedback. Certainly, I think we need to think about the things we can do there, and that those are two. I mean, that's a viable option. Open to hearing additional thoughts there as well. But yeah, I agree.
My initial idea is to set like a weekly, like a 30 minutes, not more, to scroll over the PRs to make sure they're all properly labeled or properly assigned, and we have provided some feedback on them. Either needs fixing, we need more time, whatever. I mean, to show the contributor that we're engaged with their time and they don't feel like lost and not appreciated. That's it.
Yeah, and I would say that meeting would also help I mean, I think that would be the primary focus, as you said, for new contributors, you know, and their PRs not getting lost. But I think even for existing PRs, you know, right now, one of the things that we've been doing is bringing things up in this meeting saying, oh, by the way, I have these PRs that are waiting review, you know, those that can also be brought up in this meeting as well, even for, you know, maintainers and others that are awaiting review, to kind of bring up the priority or whatever. But if you're talking about a scheduled meeting, you know, on Zoom or whatever, that time zone question comes up here as well, of course.
Right, which I think if the first idea out of the bat is a live meeting, I think it would be a smart thing to alongside that propose an async way of doing it as well, so everyone in all the time zones has an opportunity.
Which leads to another one, just to open up a little bit more. I think we discussed that the need of additional channel. I hate additional channels, but like the maintainers kind of channel, which this kind of stuff can be discussed and like asyncly discussed without actually making all the dev channel flooded with this stuff. What do you think?
Is the dev channel that flooded? It might be valuable information.
I'm not sure if you want to. I'm not sure if we want to address like, hey, can someone take a look at this PR? It's this and that can. I'm okay with this one. I hate like adding more channels, but
yeah.
But I think
I think more channels makes it harder for folks to get visibility where Slack threads would
I would also say the Slack channel is not exactly a high volume channel most of the time. And in fact, not okay, two things. One, it's not exactly a high volume channel, and I would say of the volume on that channel, at least half of that already is posting a PR asking for reviews. We're already kind of using that channel for that purpose informally.
Okay, so scrape that to the channel. So the other thing is we can either, if we want to do it live on Zoom, for example, we can use that same time frame that we have for the community meeting, and we can do it like at the end if we have time, for example. But that brings the possibility not to have time and to miss that thing. But that will allow us not to have just additional meeting. So it's a trade-off. I'm ready to give it a try either way.
I would say if we are going to have a live meeting immediately after the community meeting, probably makes more sense than trying to find another time that works for people. But again, we've got that flipping time zone issue that comes in terms of this time zone versus that time zone, and you know, kind of flipping back and forth. But at the same time, people are already here. You know, we would have to, you know, as Wes said, you know, there is the possibility of running over, and we'd have to probably kind of conceptually think of it as a separate meeting, because there are times when it might go over the, you know, the hour, because sometimes this meeting lasts the full amount. So if we're going to say we're going to do that after the meeting, then it is going to turn something that might be, you know, up to 1 hour into something that might be closer to an hour and a half. And that, you know, could be a concern for some people.
If we could pick one day a week to list out the PRs or whatever requests need maintainer attention, people could get into the habit of getting into Slack and having, and maybe it's twice a week, time zone, whatever. It doesn't need to be live. That's the beauty of having it in Slack. And in fact, a lot of open source communities refuse to have live meetings like this, and only do it over a staggered time over Slack.
It might make sense to do it and to declare Monday to be that day over Slack. That way, if there is a PR that, you know, Slack discussion indicates, hey, we really do need to talk live about it, add it as a discussion topic the next week, but that would be the exception rather than the, you know, the norm for those PRs.
Agreed. I think that's a good idea, Scott.
And if it's just, you know, one or two PRs we have to look at every so often, that's going to be less likely to make the meeting run over rather than all the PRs.
the day before a live meeting, there'd be a maintainer triage in Slack. And if something just didn't lend itself to communicating over text, that we could raise it in the meeting the next day pretty comfortably as the exception. Does that make more sense, Orland?
Yeah. And how we can organize this one, it's like reminder, it's like, hey folks, just take a look at the PRs.
Yeah,
Or
call people out. Yeah.
Or more like more direct approach, like, I don't know, just I'm thinking out loud. I don't have like a idea right now how we can do it async in Slack. And what's the
A maintainer's list, call the group. If that little that conversation can be linked, you could even email that out. Other communities do that as well. Yeah, and then everyone, gets a nice day to go through those as they can, and then if we need a live meeting, then it's available the next day.
Okay.
I think it's important enough to experiment with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to make it like super overwhelming for everyone and to spend like an hour more on Zoom calls. That's not my intention at all.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to figure out a proper way to build out the habit of anyone reviewing the PRs. That's it. Because I've seen that in my other projects in the past and even now, not Velero, but other projects, that people are just forgetting to take a look at the new PRs. And if we don't have like a proper code owners set and they don't get assigned automatically to specific zones on the code, they just don't take a look at it. They're too busy with other stuff. So let's say what's that, like Monday at some point, I'll send out a message or I'll set a reminder in the channel, hey, please take a look at this one, and then we can all kind of do command under the same message for PRs or something. And then if that doesn't work, and then we can discuss it on the Tuesday community meeting. Depends on the time frame.
That sounds like a good improvement to me, or it's something worth trying for sure.
Okay, I'm taking note for action here. Sorry, otherwise I'll forget, of course. Okay, and that will be only in the dev channel. I'll send out like a Google group message that we're gonna start this kind of effort on Mondays. So if someone wants to have like a special attention on PR and wants to bring it just to join the Velero dev and post that as a message, so the maintainers can take a look at this time. Okay. Right. I don't have anything else for today except all this. So anyone else wants to share anything, thoughts? Anyone is going to travel to KubeCon next week?
I'll be there. Anyone here traveling?
Yes, Tiger. We're gonna do ValeroCon 2024. So Karna, so you're gonna travel? You will be there?
In Detroit, right? Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
Anybody from Red Hat team there?
No, I don't think anyone on the Velero ODPC from Red Hat will be there. I'm sure there's others from Red Hat that'll be there, but none of us are going to be there.
Okay. Yeah, I was hoping to see you all.
Savitha will be there.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Is Dylan going? I thought Dylan will be going as well.
Dylan is on paternity leave.
Oh, okay. So he's definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, for most of us, it was dependent on getting those talks approved, and they didn't get approved. So
yeah, and yeah, and for me, it's also a budgeting thing. And now it's my wife had a car accident 2 weeks ago, and that's definitely changed all my plans to go anywhere. So I should be sticking around. Cannot leave the continent for now. So I'm definitely skipping KubeCon for now. All right then. Thank you very much, everyone. Sukarna, have fun at KubeCon.
Not without you
can-
guys. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah. You can
Thank
do
you.
like a brief overview of the KubeCon next time. I'll be super
Sure.
happy to hear what you saw there. So thank you very much, everyone, and talk to you in 2 weeks' time with me. And have fun and enjoy life. Thank you. Bye.